My last pick of the 2024 Sentry Tournament of Champions, I have not seen one person talk about this week, and I think he's flying extremely under the radar, and I expect him to have a huge 2024. Hi everyone, welcome to Inside the Canyon. I'm coming to you live from my bunker here in Texas. We're going to bring to you weekly previews of the 2024 golf season, and I'm going to take you into the wild place that is my brain. My plan is to break down the betting board from top to bottom, and as you look at a lot of the other shows that are on YouTube, there's a lot of time, 45, 50-minute, hour-long videos where they're breaking down course previews and what stats matter, and we'll do a little bit of that on this channel, but my goal is to try to keep these around 10 minutes and get to the golf picks. What do people care about? They want to know who you're on, how you're doing, and can you make them some money when it comes to picking and betting on golf. I've had a lot of success betting golf over the last 7 years, and I'm really excited to share that with you all and to have a community to go through with it together and have some people fire shots. And please feel free, give me feedback along the way. Like the video, subscribe. I'm going to give you a pretty simple outline of why I like the golfers that I'm going with this week and in other weeks to come. I'll give you some stats to back it up and just share my overall analysis on the golf season throughout the year. So without further ado, let's get started with the 2024 Sentry Tournament of Champions. So as we take a look at the course breakdown of the Sentry Tournament of Champions, really this is a course you have to go low. You're going to have to make birdies and make them in bunches. This is a course where the average score has been about 5 under per round. It measures at about 7,600 yards, but we all know it's not really that long. You're going to need to be able to be sharp with your approach play and be sharp with your irons. This is a second shot golf course. A lot of golfers are going to be hitting from the exact same spot. And one of the things that I think is maybe a bit of a hot take this week, especially with the weather, I'm going to be avoiding around the green. The reason for this is, I think if you're playing around the green, you're going to fall behind in the scoring. Unless you're Jordan Spieth who can chip it in with magic beans from all over the place, I think you're going to need to be on the putting surface within 20 feet and be getting really hot with the putter. One of the things I plan to do each week is I'm going to break down the top 10 in my model. The number 1 on the model this week is the man everybody's been talking about all off season and the man that everyone's looking to have a breakout season, and that's Ludwig Bear. Number 2 in my model is a man coming off one of the best seasons in the history of golf with not as many results as a lot of us thought he would have to show for it, and that's Scottie Scheffler. Number 3, a man who many were on last year but had to exit due to injury, that's Xander Schauffele. Number 4 was not a very well-known name at this time last year, and he broke onto the scene during the Florida swing. His name, surprisingly, coming at number 4, Eric Cole. Number 5 is another man that people were on last year. He was coming off a T11 finish and ended up finishing around 20th place. That's JT Poston. Number 6 is one of my favorite golfers, but not somebody I'm going to be on this week, and that's Viktor Hovland. Number 7 had a great performance at Augusta last year, which many are saying is a comp course. Number 7, Russell Henley. Number 8, who we'll get into a little bit later on in the episode in terms of why I like him this week, none other than Max Homa. Number 9, Tom Kim. And number 10, someone who I think a lot of people will be on this week, but were probably burned on pretty bad last year. In fact, I had him myself. Number 10, Colin Morikawa. I remember watching him chip towards the end on 14 or 15 and watching it roll back down the hill, and just how horribly hard it was to watch that. And Jon Rahm just setting the tone for what was to be an incredible 2023 season for him. If you look back at the 2 last champions of the Sentry Tournament of Champions, they won't be here. They've collected a fat check. They're going to be sitting at home. They're on the Live Golf Tour. That's Jon Rahm and Cam Smith. Both people that are great with their wedges and can get scorching hot, and 2 of the most talented golfers in the game, if we're being honest. So let's quickly take a look at the Sentry Tournament of Champions betting board. We've got Scottie Scheffler at the top, coming off in a phenomenal season, and Viktor Hovland, who made quite a bit of money in East Lake last year, followed by Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, who choked his brains out here last year, as many of you recall. Xander Schauffele, coming off a year where he was injured and had to kind of mysteriously leave the golf tournament. He was someone I know a lot of people were on last year and really, really disappointed when he left the golf tournament. We've got Max Homa coming in at 14-1, a man known for being an absolute assassin on California courses. We're going to get into him a little bit more later on in the show. We've got Ludwig. I'll give you a sneak peek. Ludwig's someone who tested out number 1 in my custom model. I kind of expected it to be Scotty Scheffler, so I'm wondering maybe what's wrong with the model, but alas, here we go. I think Ludwig's someone, he's got a lot of pressure on him this year. I'm not sure this is going to be the year for him. I think it's going to be very difficult for him to live up to the expectations that people are setting on him. Kind of reminds me of Tom Kim last year, if you recall. He had quite a bit of expectations coming into the season. I don't know if I'd say Tom Kim, had a bad year by any means. He had a pretty good year, but I'm not sure he lived up to the expectations that were, in my mind, a bit lofty, if we're being honest. We've got Matt Fitzpatrick, who's always flying in under the radar. I saw he was PGA Touts Player Spotlight of the Week, so that could lead to a little bit more popularity for him in DraftKings and other things like that. Jordan Spieth coming at 22-1. Spieth is somebody who, any given week, you never know, are the magic beans working? I kind of think of it, did he charge them up this week? Think about your AirPods. He's got little magic beans in his pocket. Maybe he forgets to charge them every now and then, and that might be why it works, why it doesn't sometimes. And you got Tyrrell Hatton. We're bound to see some absolutely hilarious antics. I always look forward to watching him just because you never know what you're going to get out of him. Truly a ticking time bomb. You got Tommy Fleetwood, 25-1. Tom Kim, 25-1. We'll talk about him a little bit more. Tony Finau coming in at 30-1. He was an interesting name that I looked at this week, and you look at some of the other comp courses that people are talking about, and he was a name that popped up over and over. But really, I feel like Tony Finau, you put him in the tournament in Mexico, you put him in the Quicken Loans, you put him in some of these Rocket Mortgage, some of the smaller golf tournaments, and he's someone that can, beat up on some of the lesser names on the PGA Tour. But I feel like I've really yet to see him do it in an event that is big enough to warrant backing him here. I'm not ready to be a believer in him. Sung J M at 35-1. Sung J is one of those guys where you're always going to get a pretty good number on Sung J. He kind of sucks you in. And I've been burnt by him so many times, and I'm just not going to do it here. He honestly rates out really well, and I think a lot of people will be on him this week, but I just can't get sucked back into Sung J this week. Maybe another time. Sam Burns, 35-1, also known as Bermuda Burns. This is the putting surface that he does well. It would not shock me at all if Sam Burns comes out here and wins this golf tournament. You look back at the Dell match play, he kind of came out of nowhere at that time. At this tournament last year, he was everywhere off the tee, but he can get it going with the putter. So if he can keep it straight and get dialed in with his wedges, Sam Burns can be right there come Sunday, and 35-1, that's not a bad number. Russell Henley, 35-1. Russell Henley rated out pretty high in my model, but 35-1, I just can't get there with him. That's too low. I need to have a little bit more on him. I really did want to look to him this week, but when I saw 35-1, Ricky Fowler, we'll get into him a little bit this week. I really like Ricky this week, guys. I really like him. Cam Young, 35-1. Cam Young's got some luscious locks growing. That could dial some magic for him, but just getting Paul Tesori off the bag, I'm not going to look at Cam Young this week. Jason Day, fresh off the new golf apparel deal. Good for him. Not going to bet him this week. Brian Harman could be somebody that, you never know what you're going to get from Brian Harman. He could absolutely get it going with the putter, just like he did at the Open Championship. 40-1, I'm going to pass, but I'm really, really interested in what Brian Harman does in 2024. I have no expectations, but, don't be surprised if the man turns his Open Championship into some serious momentum this year. And the man, he's a great golfer. He doesn't get that much credit. Everyone's still scratching their head at that Open Championship, but watch out for Brian Harman in 2024. Wyndham Clark, 50-1. I can't get there. I've heard people talk about LACC. who won the U.S. Open at LACC. Wyndham Clark, 50-1. If you want to just throw a dart, I mean, there are worse golfers at worse numbers than Wyndham Clark this week. Hideki Matsuyama, 50-1. Let's just see how healthy he is coming into the season. And I'm not going to be there. Cam Davis, 50-1. I've seen a lot of people on him when talking about, putting driving distance into your model. I think driving distance is fine this week, but at the end of the day, a lot of these golfers are going to be hitting long drives. I saw Rick Gaiman talked about J.J. Spawn hitting a 450-yard drive. J.J. Spawn doesn't hit 450-yard drives. If he can do that at this course, I don't really care about driving distance all that much. It's going to come down to your second shot. And that's why I think Sepp Straka, who was number 2 in approach here last year's, we'll talk about him in a little bit. That's all I'll say. Sahith Theegala, 55-1. Don't really have much to say on Sahith this week. Keegan Bradley, not much to say on him. Justin Rose, been on. JT Poston is another guy who I would look at this week as a long shot, someone to keep an eye on. And then the only other person that popped up a lot here for me was Brendan Todd. Brendan Todd doesn't have to worry about the Georgia Bulldogs playing on Monday night this year in the college football playoff. He'll be locked in and focused on this golf tournament. Not to say that's really that big of a deal, but hey, we'll take any edge we can get here. So this is what the channel is going to be built around, picks. So let's get into them. My first pick of the 2024 Sentry Tournament of Champions is Max Homa. I think this could be a year Max Homa wins his first major. He's won a lot of other big golf tournaments. He's known for winning them in California. He's great there, but I think it's time for him to make his next step. Last year, he was tied for third. He gained 4.56 strokes putting and 3.55 strokes putting in 2022. He's really a great putter, and I'm not sure he gets the credit for that. He's also somebody that can go make lots of birdies. He ranks 9th in birdie average and birdie or better percentage. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but the golfers are going to be hitting a lot of shots from 125 yards and in. So we want somebody that can hit a number of those shots, whether it's 50 to 75 yards, 75 to 100, 100 to 125, anywhere in that range. And so if you throw together the average of those ranges together, he ranks 16th in proximity to the hole from 50 to 125 yards, and he's 9th from 75 to 100 yards. I didn't want to take the chalk at the top of the board, and Max Homa was really a guy that stuck out to me as, look, he had success here last year. Why not ride him this year? The second pick in the 2024 Sentry Tournament of Champions is Tom Kim. He's someone who's hard not to like. Last year, I recall, Tom Kim was one of the hottest names coming into the season. Kind of reminds me of Ludwig. And that's part of the reason I want to stay away from Ludwig. I feel like there was a lot of pressure coming on to Tom Kim last year about this time. And I think he's shaken that. I think he's matured. I think he's grown up. He's 21 years old. He can officially have an adult beverage and go out and enjoy himself with his friends. He's probably a little bit looser. He's a little bit, I wouldn't say under the radar, but he's not as talked about this year, I feel like, with the pressure of being this new, young, up-and-coming phenom being compared to things Tiger Woods did. So let's take a look. Why did I land on Tom Kim this week? Well, he's top 15 in birdie average and birdie or better percentage. And he's also someone, when we talk about a second shot golf course, he's going to be one of the top 10 names that comes to mind. He ranked 10th in strokes gained approach last year. He finished last year tied for 5th. But as I was diving into the data a little bit deeper, I noticed he was losing strokes putting. And when we look for possible players that could spike on a week like this, someone who can hit the ball close to the hole, leave themselves 10 feet, 12 feet, and get hot with the putter. So with the finish tied for 5th last year and losing strokes putting, I think if he can start to gain strokes putting this week, we might see him lifting the Whale Trophy at the end of the week. Not to mention, Colin Morikawa in 2022 finished tied for 5th. Colin Morikawa, we all know, not the best putter. But when he can get hot with the putter as he did last year, he can certainly run away with the tournament or choke it away like last year. My third pick of the 2024 Sentry Tournament of Champions is one I honestly don't think a lot of people think about when they talk about the Sentry Tournament of Champions. I haven't really heard his name talked about too much this week. In his previous 4 starts, Ricky Fowler has a finish of T5, 4, 5, and T6. He ranks number 1 in course history in his past 4 starts. Now, course history isn't everything, so I looked a little bit more into the stats. He ranks in the top 7 in strokes gained approach. When you talk about a second shot golf course, Rickie Fowler is going to be another name that comes to mind. Another interesting thought is LA Country Club's been brought up a bit as a comp course for this. LACC, if you remember, it wasn't too firm. It played pretty easy. And a lot of people were freaking out at the time as, why are these scores so low? Well, Rickie Fowler, along with Xander Schauffele, who also is known for playing really well at this course. So we need people that are going to be able to go low on this golf course. And how about a guy that has a track record of doing that on this course? And Rickie's going to be coming in. He still wants to win. You know, he's coming off finally bouncing back in 2023. And I'm sure he wants to build on that momentum. And he's going to be extremely motivated to get off to a hot start again and continue to build on the momentum that he created in 2023. My last pick of the 2024 Sentry Tournament of Champions, I have not seen one person talk about this week. And I think he's flying extremely under the radar. And I expect him to have a huge 2024. You'll probably see him pop up on this channel quite a bit more throughout the season. And that is none other than Sepp Straka. In his last 36 rounds, he's top 13 in strokes gained approach and putting. And I've continued to hit on this time and time again in this video. A second shot golf course with a man that can get hot with the putter. He won the John Deere Classic, which again can be a comp course to this course. Not exactly like it, but it can be. And the man went absolutely nuclear on Sunday. I remember sitting there watching the tournament and just thinking, nobody is going to catch this man. He was sinking in putts from 30 feet, from 50 feet, from 25 feet, from 10 feet. He could not miss. And that's the type of guy we want here over 4 days. If Sepp Straka can channel in his Sunday from the John Deere Classic, I think 55-1 is a great number. Again, Eric Cole was 50-1. He's never won a golf tournament on the PGA Tour. I'll take Sepp Straka at 55-1, who, again, he was second in approach in 2023 at the Sentry Tournament of Champions. But Sepp Straka, he was awful off the tee. I think if he can get it right on a course that really isn't that challenging off the tee and just put himself in position, putts like he did at the John Deere Classic, this man's lifting the trophy. And at 55-1, sign me up, as Conor McGregor would say. One of the things you'll see on Inside the Canyon is we're going to track our results. You'll be able to follow along exactly how we're doing. I hope that some of you will go along and tail these bets and continue to ride with us, because I think this can be a season where we can make a lot of money together. I'm extremely excited to kick this off and looking forward to making this channel. Thanks for joining me on Inside the Canyon, and we'll see you next week for the Sony Open.